Hey guys, this is Fanged Pipsqueak Reads, and I'm here with another segment, another video. Not a review though, well, kind of a review, but I just wanted to show you my Junji Ito collection. Now, I don't know if you can see from the bookcase here, but I really like manga, and I've been reading it since I was a kid. And sometimes when I'm reading, I tend to go from manga and to fiction, and I really, since I've become like a horror writer, I've been wanting to read more horror, but it's been scarce to find some of it, some horror in manga as of late. Like they continually focus on horror, but Junji Ito, one Japanese manga artist, he focuses on that, and he's one of my favorite manga authors that I know of, and I have a lot. I think I have almost all of his books. So if you can, maybe, I don't know, it's a lot. So these are all these are all the books that I have that are by Junji Ito, and as you can see, they are a lot. And these are all, most of them are just like short stories that are drawn, of course, in manga form. For those of you who don't know manga, it's Japanese comics, but but they tend to focus on like black and white and focus on the story form a lot. So you can see here, for example, this is basically Junji Ito's style. I finished reading all of those books except for Remina. I got Remina for Christmas this year, so I can't wait to start reading this maybe this weekend. We'll see how much time I have for reading. My weekend is actually packed, even though it's my free weekend. But he really focuses on like creepy horror and body horror. Like body horror is one of his forte, in my opinion. You can definitely find that in his series Uzumaki. This one here, it's a big one. Like it's a whole manga series. Like I said, most of his stories are usually short stories, but Uzumaki is like a whole manga series. So this was given out in published like in volumes, but it was like given out in this kind of omnibus type of form. And here in Uzumaki, he kind of mixes body horror with psychological horror. I'll just read a little bit about the blurb of the manga series. Kurusucho, a small fog-bound town on the coast of Japan, is cursed. According to Shuichi Saito, the withdrawn boyfriend of teenager Kiri Goshima, their town is haunted not by a person or being, but a pattern. Uzumaki, the spiral. The hypnotic secret shape of the world. This bizarre masterpiece of horror manga is now available in a single volume, as you can see. And it's basically, like the blurb says, like this little sleepy town on the coast of Japan just becomes obsessed with the pattern spiral. And it usually starts with the protagonist's father, who is like a potter, and he starts to starts to do his potteries in this kind of spiral shape, to the point that he becomes so obsessed that they actually start to spiral themselves, like literally spiral, as you can see here. They start to spiral. Like, if this isn't horrifying, I don't know what is. And in the end, like, the town becomes consumed by it, to the point that they also like take the shape, other kind of shapes, instead of just, spiraling like their bodies. They start to look like slugs. The houses also have these spiral patterns, and it's just really bizarre. It's really creepy, and it's haunting. So if you haven't read Uzumaki already, I definitely recommend that you check it out. Like, his drawing style is, I would say, like on the maternals, like it's mature. It's not like drawn like Pokemon. Um, so it will probably appeal to you guys. So I definitely recommend it at least. It's one of my favorites. When I'm in like a horror manga kind of vibe, I usually just go for his stories. One of my favorite, I have two favorites that actually stick out, that actually still stay within me when I talk to people about Junji Ito works. There are two stories that, aside from Uzumaki of course, that really stick out to me, and I still remember them, and they still like, okay, this is a good story. I really enjoy these ones. The first one is called Hanging Blimps. So it's basically about, the story begins that a girl is hiding in her house, and she says that she's been hiding there for about a week, and she's run out of food, but she can't go outside because there's something threatening outside. Then we get like a kind of flashback of what led to that kind of creepy thing that is happening. And apparently one of her friends, or one of her schoolmates, Terumi, she was found hanged just outside her bedroom window. So you can see here, like, this is basically how it starts. And of course, suicide is unfortunately common in Japan, especially upon students. The poor pressure that is put onto them, it's horrible. They of course mourn her loss, and they try to just move on with their lives afterwards. But then they start to get like these kind of sightings of her head floating in the sky. Of course, at first the others, especially the main protagonist, the girl, she dismisses it, and she's like, no, that can't be right. But then she actually sees it for herself when one of her classmates asks her to come to one of the temples, and it's just floating in the air, like a huge one, like it's searching for something. They don't know what she's searching for. She's not doing anything. She's just like hovering there in the air. But then the classmate who asked her to come to see it, he is climbing up the tree, trying to reach out to that floating head, asking for forgiveness. So probably he might have had something to do with her suicide or something like that. And then there's a noose hanging right in front of him, and he just hangs himself. And it's shocking, of course, like, why would you do that? And then things take a ominous turn. It actually appears to be his head was waiting for him to do that. So he has now been snatched away by his huge flowing head. And the days goes by, and no one seems to believe what happened, seems to believe the girl of what happened to him, until they see something in the sky. And that kind of leads, you can probably guess what those are. Their heads. They're coming for their bodies, and they're snatching them up willy-nilly. And it kind of just spirals out of control in the story, that just every single citizen in that town or in that city, they have these heads are coming for them. So most of the people are, just trapped. If they go outside, they'll be hanged by those heads. One thought that it would be just enough to, fire an arrow into the head, like they would just deflate. And of course, that works. But if you do that, this happens to you at the same time. so there's no beating them. So the situation is hopeless. The only thing you can do is just stay inside and never go out. And basically the climax of the story is that her family, they're trapped inside their home, and they're just trying to get some kind of help, and the father goes out and is snacked, and lastly the brother, the girl's little brother, decides to go like, screw it, I'll just go and I'll try to find some help, and he goes with this genius idea to arm himself with an umbrella. And as soon as his head is trying to go snag him, he throws the umbrella at him. So it snags the umbrella instead, so he runs for safety, which is good. And then we come back to the place where we started in the story, where she's, been staying in the house for a week and she has no food, and they're still, banging on the window asking her to come out. Until she hears the voice of her brothers telling her that he found a way out. So if you could just please open the window, everything will be fine. And she's so relieved that the nightmare is over that she opens the window and finds this. And basically it was the head that was telling her to open the window, of course with her brother's voice. That's how the story ends. It's bleak as hell, but it just really stuck with me. I really like some of these stories that have like these bleak endings, because for most media, especially in horror movies, you always get this kind of the protagonist always survives, like the Final Girls and slasher movies and stuff like that. But Japanese horror isn't really like that, so I'm glad that Junji Ito kind of sticks with it, like with the bleak endings, because horror usually goes that way, and you should embrace it, bleak as it is. The other story that I also really liked is called Painter, and it's basically the first story of his Tomi series. So he did another manga series called Tomi, and I think a lot of you probably are familiar with like this picture. Like, it's online and you can probably find it if you just Google Tomi, and then probably this will be the first drawing that you'll see. A lot of artists have actually done similar things to it, and it's really fun to see the interpretation of it. So basically this story is about a girl named Tomi who wants to become immortalized, or wants to have her beauty immortalized. She finds herself so beautiful, but no artist can capture her beauty. So she's going around to each artist and asking them to do a portrait of her, which they do, but she tells them that they haven't captured her beauty and leaves, and then they become obsessed of trying to capture her beauty. Now, this one artist, he actually does that, and it just comes to the point that he cuts all ties with with everyone he knows. He starts drinking more heavily than usual, and still tries to paint Tomi like he feels like she should be, like her essence, her beauty, and everything. And it doesn't work until, like, in the photos that people catch of her, it usually is something like that. Like, you're trying to see her, the real essence. This is what he sees when he finds photos of her. So in the end, he decides to do that. He finds Tomi again, and he decides to paint her, and he tells her that this is her true essence. Like, this is who you are. This is a masterpiece. You're so beautiful. And of course, Tomi doesn't really like that. She doesn't want to be known as a monster, because in actuality she is. So when she denies his masterpiece, he goes insane and kills her. Like, brutally kills her. We're talking about butchering up into pieces. And afterwards in the story, it kind of is. You can kind of see now, and at the end of that story, that she is like almost like a demonic entity or something like that, in which she kind of just starts growing pieces of her all around. So you can see here, this is where Junji Ito excels in body horror. Like, he's really good at drawing that, and he does that hand drawn. He draws all of his drawings by hand. He doesn't use any software programs like Photoshop or anything like that. He does this everything by hand, which is bloody amazing. Like, he's one of my heroes because I write everything by hand, and I also try to draw everything by hand as well. So this is just a little bit different. Just wanted to introduce you to a different kind of horror, because I assume most of you are reading a lot of horror like me. So I figured, why not give your eyes a little bit of a horrific pleasure by checking out Junji Ito's collection. So like I said, he has a lot. So if you are into like the manga series, like a whole like continual story, I would definitely recommend Uzumaki or Tomi. But if you like short stories, you can check out like Shiver or Smashed. I really like how this is drawn, and of course his interpretation of the Scream, Fragments of Horror. This is also one of my favorites. And then he also did like his own interpretation of Frankenstein. So I also recommend checking that out. It's like, it has a big portion of this book is like has to do with the story of Frankenstein, and then there are like other collected stories along with it. And Remina is like his first. I don't know if this is first, but this is my introduction to his sci-fi horror. So this is supposed to be like a sci-fi horror. So I'm intrigued to see how that will be. So this was just my kind of introduction and showing you guys how horror can be shown differently through the eyes of manga, and I hope you guys enjoyed that. But before I sign out, I also need to tell you the answer to the pop quiz question that I gave you guys last time. So the story of Babadook is set in Australia, so I definitely recommend that you check out that movie. It's really good. If you can handle the little kid, though, it might take a little time. You might need patience. But our next pop quiz. So, how many Japanese Ring movies are there? If you know the answer, tell me in the comments. And if you have any other horror manga recommendations, by all means, recommend them to me, because I'm always in need of reading more manga. I need to read more manga and add to my collection over there. So this has been Vitlemein from Fanged Pip Squeak Reads, and I hope you guys enjoyed. See ya!